So I was watching this Rebel Wisdom video on Ken Wilbur. Like Paul Vanderklay, the last half of it, or the last maybe 20 to 40 minutes, really caught my attention. And Vanderklay said a lot of things that I was thinking about it, so I won't comment just sort of on the same stuff. I want to focus on the part where he's talking about magic. Ever since Owen Benjamin was talking about wizardry and magic in that sense, it sort of started me on a path thinking about what is magic really. And I want to bring up the Pharaoh, or the Pharaohs, God, Moses, and Einstein as potential magicians and workers of this art that is magic. I was going to bring up Carl Jung, since in the Red Book he has a whole chapter on the magician that he meets, and on, I think he has another chapter preceding that on magic itself. But I think I'll just save that for when I do the Red Book itself. So I'll play here where Ken Wilbur talks about magic, and then I'll give my commentary on it.
And they are profoundly different. I mean, you really can have a spiritual worldview that's magic. Voodoo tends to be an example of magic. Magic is the idea, and it tends to occur in developmental sequences fairly early because the human organism is learning to differentiate itself from the environment. And in the process where it's learning to do that, it hasn't quite succeeded. And so its mental image of a thing isn't really well differentiated from the thing. So it thinks that to manipulate its mental idea of the thing is to actually magically change the thing. So if I make a doll that represents you and I stick a pin in the doll, I've actually hurt you. That's magic. And we all have magic, we all have superstition, but that tends to be one of the earliest stages of cognitive development, one of the earliest stages of spiritual intelligence, and so on. And it is magic. As it starts to move towards mythic, you get a stage that spiral dynamics, for example, calls power gods. Because you realize there's still magic, or you think there's still magic in the world, but you don't have it anymore. You keep trying, it really doesn't work, so you sort of give up. But others have it. So mommy, for example, could change the yucky spinach into candy if she wanted, because she's a power god. And so if you want to be on the good side of your power god, you have to know how to be nice to it, you have to know what it wants to say, and so you can develop these whole rituals or types of prayers and so on. And eventually that magic retreats into just supernatural beings, Zeus or Apollo or Yahweh, God, that kind of thing, and then you get the magic stage. And that occurs on up until you get the emergence of rational, which adds a third person perspective, reflects on that and goes, no, those aren't really real. If I want something, I'm going to have to do it myself through scientific experiment and research. So you're seeing those kinds of development occur in religion. And what Peterson does is he won't himself profess belief in any of what those stages actually say. Like I say, he doesn't really believe that Moses actually parted the Red Sea. He doesn't really believe that Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt. But that's what the people that had that belief, that's what they believed. Now, how much they are also being influenced by these hidden factors that he sees what was really happening, that's a little bit more open to debate. I think they are there, but I think you do see shifts as development undergoes, because they just aren't the same fundamental rules at those different kinds of viewpoints. And you have to take those into account.
So this is not going to be one of those video essays. I don't really like doing those types of things. It's just me thinking out loud some of the beginning thoughts I had when Owen Benjamin started talking about wizardry and magic. And it got me thinking about something Carl Sagan, I think it's Carl Sagan, said something like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. You know, that quote has always stuck in my mind because I'm very much a technology buff. It's one of my interests. And so I started thinking, you know, how can we understand magic and technology and psychology? And so what is magic anyway? So it seems to me that it's associated with words, with language, with artifacts, and that which is beyond our senses. And so Ken Wilbur, he invokes the supernatural, something that's beyond natural. The words are magic words, and the artifacts, they seem to take on like an otherworldly sort of stature, something that's like being more than what they appear to be. The wizard or the magician, likewise, by employing magic, takes on a status of one who is more than he appears, since he has the ability and the knowledge to manipulate or grasp that which is beyond our senses. Now, the average person doesn't have either this knowledge or this ability, making the wizard unique. The man plus the object, so the wizard and whatever this artifact is, become more than they are. They become magical through words, through language. Usually it's not ordinary language, but something unknown, something alien or otherworldly or ancient, something needing to be said or spoken in a certain fashion, maybe even like with a sort of ceremonial context behind it or within it. And now, you know, what does that remind you of? The ceremony, the magic words, the artifact. You know, this is all built into religion. What comes to my mind in my Christian context is sort of the reenactment of the Last Supper, taking the bread and the wine, the body and the blood of Jesus, and sort of reenacting that, saying the magic words in the ceremony within this sort of context, religious context. So, but now imagine the primitive human beings, or anything that was sort of related to us. You know, we existed for tens of thousands of years, supposedly, without language. And then Ian McGilchrist argues that we sort of developed a sing-song language that was very emotive, about our emotional states. And then from there, and he's arguing against Pinker with this, because Pinker takes an opposite view. From that, we sort of developed the language that we have today. It sort of started out from song, then to like poetry, sort of. And then, because poetry has a rhythm and a rhyme and a sort of a sing-songness about it. And then to something more literal. But we still carry a lot of the metaphors and stuff from our previous language in it. So imagine not understanding language and then seeing beings that do understand language, and seeing what they can do and what they accomplish. And so this is my little thought experiment, or my little imagining about what might it be like if you don't understand language and you see something complex being brought into existence, like a skyscraper or a church or a cathedral or maybe the pyramids or something. Wouldn't that seem like an incredible manipulation of people and resources, the results of which would be sort of awe-inspiring, an awe-inspiring physical artifact that would kind of, it gives you this feeling that it's more than what it is. It's more than its part. It's more than just a bunch of bricks. The pyramid is more than a bunch of huge stones. A cathedral is more than stone and cement and stained glass and so forth. There is that. We feel this sort of otherworldliness about it. And for me, it seems to come from, you know, our primitive, non-lingual brain parts that don't understand and don't recognize what you can do. And this brings me to the Carl Sagan thing. With technology, it seems like magic. So, but people don't think of language as necessarily like a technology that can bring forth incredible things. But it's really, language is at the base of all of our technology, because we have to use it to communicate with other people about how to get the resources and what to do with the resources to shape them into a cathedral or a pyramid or a skyscraper. So that's why I had this little slide here talking about, I wanted to make sure I don't forget about the Pharaoh, God, Moses, and Einstein, because Moses went up to the, he went up upon the mountain and he figured out from his observations, what the people were doing that was successful as far as morality, and this is Jordan Peterson's view of it, and he codified it with language. And so now he brought this down, and the language part of it, and the stone tablets, this is the artifact, this is the magic. And now if you follow this magic spell, these rules written in stone, this artifact, you will have good fortune in your life. Your life will go according to God. You'll have good luck, or whatever you want to think of it as. God is seen as having the magic because he spoke the universe into existence. He spoke the world into existence using words, using language, that somehow the universe came to be. But like I said, anything sufficiently advanced, as Carl Sagan said, would seem like magic. So, primitive man might imagine God using language because language is sort of a technology that primitive man doesn't really understand. The Pharaoh, likewise, the Pharaohs were the guys, they had men who understood mathematics and engineering and all this sort of thing, and using the language of abstraction, they were able to manipulate, or have the people manipulate, those huge stones to build over many years the pyramids. And so this was sort of a sign, the physicalness of the pyramid was a sign of their magical power, that ultimately comes from the communication and the abstractions they were able to do with language. And then now I take Einstein as an example, because he would be a modern-day magician in how he manipulates mathematics, the language of math, and expresses that to other people so that they can build something like an atomic bomb, or they can understand the world with his language, and how to manipulate the world with the language he developed with his theories. And so these are just some of the sort of thinking out loud I had since Owen Benjamin was talking about magic a lot. And I just think that Owen Benjamin sort of puts a little bit of a supernatural spin on it, when you don't necessarily have to have a supernatural spin on it. It could be a very natural thing. It's based on language and artifacts and technology. I view language as a sort of technology, and it's, I think, sort of the first one that we had that allowed us to greatly manipulate the environment and others around us so that we could survive. So I think the whole idea of magic is with us because it is so important to us as a species, the language abilities and the creation of artifacts.